Welcome to Ask Nelda Almost Anything. My name is Nelda Schulte, and in the background we have, well, not background, right beside me we have Tanya and Anthony Wttewaall. Suspiciously, they have the same last name. They're partners in crime. More on that later. And my online business, neldaschulte.com, exists to help property investors and landlords build a profitable do-it-yourself real estate investing landlording business with videos, articles, reports, and online courses. And the reason I do this is because when I started investing in real estate 18 years ago, I made every single mistake in the world. I stepped in a bunch of financial landmines, and I really wanted to make it my mission to help people bypass those lines and fast track through a successful program. Reasons why I'm also bringing speakers on, because these people are specialists in their industry. They've been there, done that, and they can share their knowledge and their expertise with us. So tonight, as mentioned, we have Anthony and Tanya Wttewaall, and they're going to talk about the Alberta real estate market predictions for 2022. I'm certainly very interested in this. I know we all are. We've had such a weird 10, 12 years in Alberta. And Tanya and Anthony are mortgage brokers with Belmor Mortgage Corp. They've been doing that for, I think, almost 20 years. And Tanya has worked in almost every corner of the mortgage transaction industry. And beyond mortgages, her passion comes from educating and empowering generations of people with building their real estate portfolios or converting renters into homeowners. So thank you so much and welcome. Thank you for joining us and welcome.
You're welcome. And just like these are realtor with EXP. So I'm the mortgage broker, he's the realtor. That's okay.
And 20 years of being in this business has been a lot of fun, but it's been a lot of pain. And as you said, Nelda, we go through all the mistakes to learn how to play it right, to help other people to not make the mistakes we've made.
Yes. So lots of mistakes, which is part of real estate.
It is part of the learning. You have to jump in and start somewhere. That's what all investors tell me. And when you jump in and start anything, there's always a learning curve. And as uncomfortable as it is, there's a learning curve. And it comes with some lessons, right? But first, I want to congratulate you. I think your kids are amazing. Every time I'm looking on Facebook posts, it's like, I'm so glad they're not their mother, because I would feel like a total loser.
Don't say that.
You've got the most talented, successful kids ever. I mean, her daughter wins every dancing competition known to mankind. And then the other one wins every hockey competition. It's just amazing.
I'm a tiger mom. I am a tiger mom, but no, we're very blessed. We've been very blessed on this. Anthony, I guess question.
I think I ended up with a third person, a guest I can let in, but I didn't want them on the screen, so I'm not sure how to do that. So I think I'm just going to leave them where they are.
Okay. I was like, we're getting squished out of the way.
No, you don't have to get pushed. Yeah, I know. We kind of feel like squishing even though we're virtual here. So let's just dig in here. The recession was followed by never-ending COVID, which has made all of us feel really pretty insecure about the real estate market in Canada and particularly in Alberta. So I don't know. What do you think? Is there any light at the end of the tunnel?
Well, I think we're in the light. Like, are you saying like the recession to COVID? Oh, sorry. Yeah. The recession to COVID. We are in an interesting time right now, Nelda. It's been crazy, like crazy.
Well, let me share something. So COVID was pretty good in the real estate business. I mean, the whole thing, as bad as it was, the real estate game has been playing it out. And let's be real. A lot of the beginning of this whole thing was people sold houses and had to buy houses. And that just kept flowing on and on and on and escalated it. And then the biggest thing that happened is people couldn't get houses because they're going, oh my God, I sold my house. Now I got to buy a house. And literally they were saying, well, I'll pay like $50,000 more. I'll pay $80,000 more. It was ridiculous. I would literally go to clients and say, you're paying too much for this house. Let me show you what's all wrong with it. Say, I don't care. I need a home. So it became more a matter of the desperation of getting a home and the fact that they felt like they couldn't be homeless. All part of this hype we're dealing with, because let's face it, half of what's going on is hype. It's hype.
Well, during COVID, I called it the toilet paper effect, because it didn't make sense to me. We're in a pandemic. People are getting laid off. We're living on CERB income, and yet the housing market is going strong. And I'm like, I called it the toilet paper effect because it didn't make sense. Now,
the toilet paper makes sense.
it syndrome thing never made sense. But when the Omicron virus hit in October, and we thought, oh my God, another set of closure, it didn't have the effect on the economy that economists predicted. We thought the Omicron was going to cause another set of closures, and it didn't. And that propelled the economy to move forward again. And then our oil recovered better than projected.
Okay.
All of these are causing our housing market to recover at an exponential rate. Does anyone in Calgary right now would know that this is really busy times?
Yeah, I would have been very surprised by, I mean, anytime I read about housing prices or anyone who's selling their house, they always seem to get more for it than what they thought they would get for it. Sometimes there were bidding wars. And this is a time when theoretically nobody has jobs or money,
Yeah.
and there's a housing shortage. So it's like, what the heck?
This is a replica of the 2004-2005 housing boom.
Oh, really?
Bidding wars, one day on the market. It's definitely a seller's market right now. Now, the spring market already perpetuates that. The spring market is hot, but this market's been going on since what, October, November, when things started to really heat up.
Yeah.
So this is Calgary. We either boom or we're flat.
But let's talk for a second about the fact that we've totally been undervalued. Like our houses have been way under market. When you even look at what should we be getting for houses? We've been $100,000 under where we should be at.
Really?
And where we're like, you look at Toronto and Vancouver, they've always been at $1 million. Like not always, but the last few years they've been at $1 million, which is unrealistic. But Calgary's been at 450. This is the market, and everybody knows it, and that's why they're all coming here. But not just in Canada. We're talking the world is looking at it going, this is
really?
to invest.
So the world is looking at Calgary and Alberta right now. That's what you're saying. Oh, okay.
So the Toronto's benchmark price surprisingly is about 1.3 million, and so is Vancouver. So what is driving the investors is that they're seeing Calgary and Edmonton as investment properties that actually cash flow. You can't buy an investment property in Toronto and have a cash flow. What you're sitting on is properties you're hoping will appreciate in value, and you can flip it and then have the equity.
Really?
Vancouver's the same way. It's just properties that needs to appreciate in value. But in terms of buying multifamilies in those areas, it won't cash flow as well as it will in Calgary and Edmonton.
Right.
Number one, our rents are more reasonable. You could get a 2-bedroom condo. I don't know, Nelda, you would know more because you're in property management. But in Toronto, a 2-bedroom condo would be $1,600, $1,800. Calgary might be $1,200.
$2,500, maybe $2,500 in Toronto.
So our market is ripe for investors, international investors from Toronto and Vancouver, which is so saturated. But Toronto will still do well because it has a strong presence of investors.
Yeah.
And Vancouver will just do well because they have such limited inventories. And
And
Calgary,
everyone loves that.
Yeah, and we'll just cash flow well because we have what Anthony would say, like the affordability index, right? Do you want to?
So that actually sort of answers my next question, because I was going to say that Alberta has, it's been kind of like a one-horse town in terms of the economy, because we've just been really reliant on oil and gas, and our economy took a real donkey kicking, for the last decade. And I was just wondering where you saw Alberta in the real estate market, and you kind of answered that already. You've said it's ripe for investing, and especially for international investing.
Yeah.
So I'm going to touch on that a little bit. Like, here's the biggest thing that I think is happening. This is all hype. Okay, we've got Toronto people, we got Vancouver people. I'm talking real estate. I'm seeing more deals that are saying or assignee. So they're all assigning contracts. Lots of wheelers and dealers or wannabe wheelers and dealers coming out here trying to tie up contracts, assign contracts, try to flip the deals. This is what's coming in here. All the hype guys.
Oh, really?
All of what's happening is in Toronto. The people went from Toronto they went to, I think it's Etobicoke to like, they keep moving out of the city. And it kept moving along, follow the GO train, and the trend went out, and the houses kept going up in value. I just did a deal with a girl, and she is from, where's she from again? She's
St.
from
Catharines.
St. Catharines, which is, an hour out of Toronto, and she's selling her house for 1.2 million, and it's a 1960s little house with a bit of land on it. But
Wow.
that's because it's St. Catharines, it's on the GO train, and she came out here and she goes, you know what, Anthony? I know they're asking 780. I'll go to 900. And I'm going, are you crazy? But that's the mentality. So that's the Toronto, Vancouver mentality, is that, you know what, pay over. Let's get a bidding war going. Let's get a bidding war. But to me, the important thing to realize, and this is what really resonates with me, is that this is a very interesting time because there's so much chaos in the world right now, like so much chaos. Not only do we just get out of COVID, we got Putin there doing his thing. We got the Korean guy doing his thing. We got China doing their thing. We got so much chaos going on. And I think this is all subjective thinking of what's happening. I think what's happening is that the world is going, oh my God, what are we going to do? We need to put our money somewhere that's not going to feel the inflation that's going on in the world. We got cryptocurrency. Let's invest in real estate. What's the safest country in the world to invest in is Canada. Where's the best place to invest in Canada right now is Alberta. So we're seeing the world is looking at us and going, this is where we should be investing. So, this is powerful because we got to look at that and go, like, how long can this last? Well, the world arena is looking at us for quite a while. And so, our prices right now, there's a discussion about what's the average house price. And the average house price right now, I just looked it up, is like $550. The benchmark is $650, but the benchmark really says that's what the market value is worth. They're saying this is what it's worth is $650. And theoretically, I believe that's what it's worth based upon all the variables we're looking at. But right now, the actual prices, it's about $550, which is $100,000 more than it was worth 6 months ago.
Oh,
so
wow.
like a 6
months.
Period, it went up $100,000.
Oh, that's crazy. We have a question here from one of our listeners, from Guy. He says, do you think that the climate change announcement today will impact Calgary prices negatively?
Well,
I didn't hear about the climate change announcement. I'm so sorry. Is there a climate change announcement? So it's funny because it's been so busy. There's been a lot of pressure in the mortgage and real estate market with just like short closings and everything. But what is going on with the climate change?
I don't know. I was hoping you did so that I could look like I could sort of dovetail on your smartness.
I know. I've heard 60 radio is the only news I get is that we've never met our targets for reduction of carbon. Is that kind of what we're talking about?
I just got my income tax return statement from my accountant today, and he said something about I got something about I got a rebate or something similar to a rebate or a refund for pollution and climate change that all Albertans get or all Canadians get. It's something like $750, and it'll be parceled out over a few months. Maybe that is something. Is that what you're talking about, guys? Sorry, we're so busy with our heads down here. Yes, he says yes. That's what he's talking about. So okay, that's good.
I think what it is Trudeau announced that we're going to do something where we're going to do a major climate change, where we're going to be the ones setting an example for the world, that we're doing our efforts to make sure that we do reduce emissions. And I may be wrong.
Well, again, we never met our targets, but I will say this. Calgary is very heavily dependent on oil. Yes, we've been trying to diversify into technology and stuff like that. Our oil is recovering better than what we predicted. We do have a long ways to go. I mean, we have a lot of resources to diversify. That's a tough.
But I'll tell you what I think. And I like this conversation where we can all chat about things. I think that climate change is going to make Canada look like a more favorable place to invest in. So the world is looking at us going, you know what? We are the place that you want to be because we care about the world. We're a stable economy. So once again, instead of putting money into cryptocurrency because economies and inflation is running rampant, invest in Canadian real estate. So I think that is going to make our real estate do better because I think people are looking in the world at Canada is a place to invest in real estate because they care about the world. They're stable. So I think, yes, it'll have a positive effect on our real estate.
Okay. So it looks like Guy said that Canada's wanting to reduce emissions by 45 to 50% by 2030. So good. Yeah. I hope we do because I think we're lagging behind many other countries. When I look at Norway and I look at Spain, for instance, who have all of these earth-friendly resources that their country is run with instead of oil and gas, I think good for them. Why, we're technologically advanced. Why can't we do it too? Anyway, I'm not going to rant about that. I'm going to go on to the next question. So for people who are starting out and they want to buy their first investment property in Calgary and Alberta, what advice would you give them on how to get started?
This is my advice. The easiest way to get an investment property is the property you're living in. So it's your first home. The easiest way to convert your existing home into a rental property. And I'll tell you why. When you buy a rental property, if you're a first-time investor, is it hard for you to save up 20%? Because when you buy a rental property, you have to put 20% down. When you buy an owner-occupied property, it's 5% down. So the easiest way is to the house that you're living in is to create that into an investment property first. The easiest way to kind of get your feet wet. Now, if you're beyond that, as you know now that we do a lot of networking, it's so important to educate yourself. You will find a lot of real estate groups. It's so good to network. As you say, we've been in it for 20 years. We started as real estate investors. I think you too. Made a lot of mistakes. And the mortgage rules are constantly changing every 6 months. Yeah. And if you're not in it full time, it is almost impossible. So you have to meet other people, find out how they did it, learn from their mistakes, and get in. Just get your feet wet.
And so I want to say, for your first investment, I love that point that you brought up, because really it is about networking. And a big part of your arsenal needs to be learning how to do joint venture partnerships and meeting people you can offer your services. Because there's people out there that have money, there's people out there that have made the credit, there's people out there that may have the variables you need to make the deals work. But what you may have the hunger, because half of it is the hunger for me. I get guys calling me who want to flip properties and stuff, and I'm like, I don't got the time for this. But you know what? The hungry guys that keep coming back, I let them into my inner circle. I got deals. But you know what? You got to work hard before I'm going to spend the time with you to make something happen. So when these guys call me up and they're from Ontario and they're telling me all the things they want to know, or even better, I get these guys out of the States telling me how it works. And I'm going, this is Canada, and that's not Alberta. This is not Toronto. This is not Vancouver. This is Alberta. This is not Alberta. This is Calgary. And this is not Calgary. This is Forest Lawn, which is a great place to have revenue properties, because people are workers and they want to live there and work there. And you know what? I've got a deal in a townhouse right now. And for example, in Forest Lawn, which is not the greatest area, but you know what? It's like $170,000. What can you get for $170,000? A 3-bedroom townhouse with a basement, and it's actually a half decent place for $170,000.
That's unbelievable. I've got a friend / colleague. She's also on Facebook, and she's also a securities commissioner, investor person. And she only invests in rental properties, suited rental properties in Forest Lawn. And she's got a whole formula for making them cash flow. And I don't know how many properties she has, probably 100. And that's the area that she buys it. Now, I don't really like that area. I think her husband grew up in that area and he really likes it. And he's very comfortable with, the community and everything else. So I was going to mention that, because I think it's very important to be in a neighborhood, or if you're going to have renters, to be in a neighborhood that you are comfortable with and the type of people who are going to live there. So for instance, I'm really super comfortable with Newfoundlanders right now, because I've got a property in Fort McMurray and my house has been occupied almost 100% of the time by Newfoundlanders and tradespeople. They're very different than me in every way. I really like the ones who are there. But there's an adjustment that you have to go through when you're dealing with certain groups of people that you can do either really easily or you'll never get to. So it's important to know what neighborhood you're dealing with, kind of clients you're dealing with, because, that's your money. I actually like what you're saying about networking. I like what you're saying about choose the area, figure out who you want to associate with, figure out, be hungry for it, and then keep pestering people so that you can get what you want. So if you're investing for the first time, I like the house hacking idea. I think that's a great idea. And actually, most investors, I was at an investor symposium last weekend, and all of the investors said they started out with house hacking. So they either lived in their house, They bought their primary residence, left, and then rented it out.
It's the easiest way. And the big thing is Airbnb. Again, it's a lot more work because you're not being a long-term tenant. The cash flow is better, but it is. I mean, you have to have the time. And if you don't have the time, I say get a professional property manager to manage the properties. But it is work. I mean, having a rental property is the best type of retirement fund. It's your residual income as you get older. We're self-employed. You're self-employed, so we don't have like the pretty pension. What we're going to have is a rental property that's going to be our pension. And so, but it's work. You got to work. We can have all these stories about our rental properties, and they're not always peaches. and there've been nightmares. There's been times where like, oh my God, I can't deal with it. But success doesn't come like easy. You have to do it.
Yeah, I remember once complaining to an investor friend of mine, and this guy bought commercial and residential properties, and I was kind of at my wit's end at one point, and I called him and talked to him, and I said, I'm really having a problem with this, and I was whining and complaining, and he said, Nelda, keep trying.
Yeah.
That was his advice. And I said, you know what? You're right. That's what I need to do. But I wanted to add something positive because I spoke to a fellow on the weekend who works for Revenue Canada. He's an accountant, and he has a background in owning motels in South Africa. Ooh. And he now works for Revenue Canada. He's the evil guy who does your taxes. But he said what he sees through Revenue Canada is that people like doctors, lawyers, people who are in high income positions, their wages stop at 65, where you can only work like 60 hours a week, or your hours get reduced after 65. So your wages drop quite drastically after 65. He said everybody he sees through Revenue Canada who own properties and real estate keeps going up. If you've invested properly, you can make more and more money after 65. It doesn't go down.
Yeah. And what we tell our clients, again, when you're first starting out, I know we've met so many different types of people who come and go, I want to own an apartment building. And you really got to start the base. We say single detached homes, what you're going to find will appreciate more in value. But of course, once you're able to get like maybe put a basement suite, a legal basement suite, or then get a multifamily, what you're going to find is that they don't appreciate as much, but they'll cash flow. And so there's two types of beauties, but we meet all sorts of people who want to go big fast. I say go slow, walk, not run. There's a lot to learn.
Actually, I got a funny story to tell you. When Tanya and I first got into this business, which was years ago, 20 years ago, we did a lot of interesting deals. We did really well. We grew so fast. And I remember we were buying properties like we didn't sight unseen. We were buying properties sight unseen in Kelowna, in Fort McMurray. Some of them were winners, or some of them weren't. We just went crazy. And I remember meeting this this real estate lawyer at a function with mortgage brokers. And what he said to me, he was an old Chinese guy. He said, you need to slow down and walk before you run. And I was going, what are you talking about? This business is great. We can buy a house. We can do this, we can do that.
I would say 20 years ago when we're like, oh, look at us. Because, we were like, hey, look at us. And now when I think back, oh my God, how did we get through it? Because what goes up comes, you got to watch the economy. Yeah. Alberta, Calgary, flatlines. So we can boom. And what we're seeing right now is a boom, but it will flatline. And you need to be able to cover those mortgage payments. So Anthony's going, and this beautiful real estate lawyer goes, you need to slow down. And it was true. We were going too fast, and we made a lot of mistakes. Some of them were costly. And my advice to new investors is seriously take your time, find the right property. There's always going to be a deal. So if you're panicked right now because things are moving so quick, that's the worst time for you to make that irrational decision.
Absolutely. You know what? Do not slow down. One of the best things right now, I think, for new real estate investors, this Airbnb thing's been a lot of hype, but the more I look at it and analyze it, it's really a simple thing. I mean, you just tie up a property on a rental. You rent it. You're not even buying it. You rent it and then Airbnb it. That's a simple thing to get in it. It doesn't cost much. You're not even totally tied to it. You don't have that much of a commitment. And if you can find somebody that's been having a hard time, which you'll have, everybody's renting like crazy right now.
I can't hear you, Anthony. Sorry, you just faded.
I was just saying, there's no problem renting properties. But what I'm trying to share is that easy way to get in is through the Airbnb game, I think, because you don't need to get the mortgage. You're just tying up a property in a rental agreement.
Yes, if your landlord is willing to do that. So I would never, ever allow that with any of my properties, because I want to know who's in my property, and I want them to have tenants insurance and all that stuff. But yes, I know people who've done it. And also you need to check with your municipality and see if they allow it, because they're cracking down more and more now. They're making laws, and they're taxing property owners on Airbnbs, and they're making them get licenses. And so there are all these different rules and stipulations. Like you said, the mortgage industry changes every 6 months. Yes. Landlord-tenant laws changed almost, well, they don't change maybe quite as often, but there are always changes to the laws, because the municipality wants their piece of the pie too. So they're going to find, if they're saying, oh, hey, look, a lot of people are doing Airbnbs in our town, we're going to find a way to get some taxes out of that. So you've got to check all your laws first. You need to know your landlord-tenant laws. You need to find out if your property insurance will cover that kind of stuff, because if they don't, and there's a problem, there's also liability issues. I read a whole bunch of articles recently about really awful things that happen to people, guests in Airbnb properties, and huge liability cases, like a woman in New York who went out on a New Year's Eve thing and came home, and somebody had gotten into her Airbnb and attacked her, and then came back. The police caught him, and she sued Airbnb, and it was like millions of dollars that she got. And they tried very hard to keep it very hush-hush for a long time, but it came back up. So, and I'm reading more and more of those types of things. They actually have a whole department now at Airbnb that handles liability cases. So there's lots of, yes, it's a good way to get into it if you can. But the flip side of that is there's lots of danger if you're not doing it right.
Yeah. So back in the days when it wasn't so easy to rent out a property because there's just such a surplus of rental. Anthony and I would convert our home, our rentals into executive rentals, so we would actually furnish it, and that made a difference. You do get a different type of clientele, but again, once you get into real estate investment, you need to find a little bit of a niche. What would separate you from other rental properties? So, and I say, don't be afraid to look outside of Calgary. There's some smaller markets. I know that the smaller towns, that is pretty good investment as well. So don't be afraid to go outside of Calgary.
Actually, I just want to take a second and talk about that, because you'd be surprised how many great deals there are, like in southern Alberta, like the Lethbridge area.
You're fading again.
Like certain areas like Lethbridge and Medicine Hat, and even the smaller towns like Picture Butte, Random. These little communities, they still are pulling similar rents, not as good now, but similar good rents, and their prices are substantially less. And it's certainly in your backyard, and you know more about the rental part of it, but you can pick up even fourplexes, for $600,000 or $700,000, like literally.
That's great.
In Lethbridge, like there's great prices on stuff if you're willing to go outside of Calgary. In Calgary, you can't buy stuff. It's just ridiculous. There's nothing. So yeah, that's one of the things I would recommend, is looking outside of Calgary.
Yeah, look outside of Calgary, and if you're going to manage it, before you buy, if it's a rental, make sure you know how you're going to manage it or who's going to manage it. And just because you turn your property over to a property manager doesn't mean they're going to do a good job. I've fired 3 property managers. So I've had some not great experiences with property managers. We had a property management business, my husband and I. And we never got fired, but we started it because we were having so much trouble with property managers. So you have to do your due diligence, and if you have to make sure there's somebody with boots on the ground who can take care of your property, do your showings legally, that they're not going to get in trouble with RECA. And then the other thing you really absolutely need is you need a good maintenance man. So in my Fort Mac property, I've got a fabulous maintenance man. If he leaves, well, I'm not going to let him leave. I'm going to crazy glue his feet to the ground.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to tether him to my house because I could not do it without him. I couldn't. So you really need somebody with boots on the ground. So yes, great deals to be had elsewhere if you're willing to look. But you need a team there. You need people who can take care of your property. I'm going to go over to our next question, which is what qualifications do you need as a mortgage broker? So if you're choosing a mortgage broker, how do you look for somebody?
Oh, do you mean to find a mortgage broker to use?
Yeah, to use. Yeah.
Oh, to use. I always say good things about both banks and mortgage brokers. So lately I've been getting a lot of questions like, what's the difference between a bank and a mortgage broker? And I say this, first of all, the banks have their own products.
Mhm.
So if you don't fit into their product, then they can't assist you. So then I've got reps at the banks that will contact me, and vice versa. If I don't have a product and I need a bank, I'll go to them. So I always say good things on both. I think the big difference is that the bank person does everything else. They do mutual funds, they open TFSAs, and they do mortgages. So they're not specialists. With a mortgage broker, I would look for someone that's been in the business for a while, that does it full time. You'll be surprised by how many people do mortgages part time.
Yeah.
I have no clue how they do that because it changes so often. And because the market is really hot right now, I'm getting emails constantly by lenders. I can't even keep up with all the changes. The rates are changing daily. So
Wow.
I would find a full-time mortgage broker that's been in it for, I would say, I'm going to use the number 3 years. I've been in it for 20 years, but I'm still learning. I'm good with what I do, but I'm constant learning because everyone's situation is always unique. So I'm learning things all the time. But find someone that's, and you know what? I'm a part of a boutique firm. I used to be part of a really big brokerage, and it doesn't matter when they say, well, what brokerage are you with? It really doesn't matter. Nor does like a realtor. It doesn't matter what brokerage you're with. It's about you and your experience.
Person, yeah, and how you're treating. And by the way, I know Tanya because she actually did wonders for a friend of mine who needed she had a very complex situation, and Tanya jumped in and worked a miracle a couple times.
Did
That's
you?
That's how I knew you, and then I met you through. And then in person, I met you through a mutual friend of ours. Again, another person in the real estate industry. So yeah, that's how I'd heard about you originally.
Yeah. Oh, the guy asked a question.
Yeah.
Do
Mortgage brokers, do B lenders, and banks, right?
Correct. Like so as a mortgage broker, we have access to many different lenders. When you need to go to, let's say, a B lender, I never call them B lenders. It sounds like you're B rated. I call them alternative lenders. They specialize in like the beautiful self-employed. Again, we're self-employed. I get it. Your income isn't high enough. It's all in your business, or you claim very little for tax purposes, or you've been through life, so you've got some credit blemishes. The banks, when you go to a bank, you need to fit into their guidelines. And I use the banks as well. I use the big 5 banks. You do have to fit into their guidelines because they go through the audits. We have access to alternative lenders. We have access to private lenders. Every situation is unique. So
yeah, what I like about going through a mortgage broker, and that's I went through a bank for my first property, and since then I've only gone through mortgage brokers because one mortgage broker pulls your credit report once. If I go to 5 different banks, they're pulling my credit report every time.
correct.
And you have to make all these trips to see people, and they've got their own criteria. What I can do is come in with my situation to the mortgage broker and say, this is my situation, these are my finances. What can you do for me? And they've got access to, like Tanya said, everything and everybody. So they can just find me the right deal without me having to go around hat in hand finding the right mortgage broker.
And a mortgage broker, it's our kind of our bread and butter. It's what we do. It's all we do. Whereas a bank, it's their job. So they've got other things that they need to do. They not just mortgages. So this is our life, and it's you find someone with a couple of years experience, and you should be good in good hands.
Yeah, I think so. You should absolutely be good to go. Yeah, my husband was wanting to refinance one of his mortgages, and the bank didn't even call him back.
And I'm hearing that again
twice. I mean, that's never happened to me with a mortgage broker. With mortgage brokers, I want to renew whatever, and bam, they're on the phone talking to me because that's their livelihood, right? So they're not going to miss their appointments.
We're not 9 to 5. We work all the time. Like I'm trying to find. With my kids though, I'm working now. Again, I've been in it for 20 years, so now I'm steadily working towards balance. But yeah, back in the days, it was 7 days a week.
Well,
But
and as
still,
a realtor, you work
he
7
is.
days a week.
He
all the
works
time.
7
That's
days
all
a
you
week.
do. 5 o'clock in the morning, the phone's ringing. No, what do you got to do?
Yeah.
That's part of the game.
Yeah, I was always surprised when I started looking for properties through a realtor. I could call my realtor at literally any time of the day or night, any day of the week. She always picked up the phone. I'd be like, "Do you never sleep?" Like, I was expecting to get your voice, but no, I'm always available for my customers, and she always was.
Yeah, it's
And if
true
I
because I get it in their life.
yeah,
When they have the commercial on, I think it's a Remax commercial. So they said real estate's our lifestyle. So true. It really is. I mean, anything we do, Anthony and I do, is real estate. So all of our networking groups are real estate oriented. Like now that you and I run the real woman in real estate. It's real estate. So that's all I do. All we do.
are you resurrecting the live group again? Like with meetings?
Yeah, I should, huh? I've been asked that. I guess I
love
should.
that group.
I know.
I would like to go out and meet people in person again if COVID ever stops.
Hi guys, thanks for coming in.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Okay, I would like to ask you about what's happening to mortgage rates in 2022.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Let me explain the difference between fixed rate and variable rate. So all the talks you've been hearing on the news is the Bank of Canada rate. So when they go, the bank is announcing its key interest rate. I mean, like to a normal person, it's like, what the heck does that mean? I'm always like, can you just dumb it down? Because like even me of 20 years, just dumb it down. So all the talks you've been hearing about the Bank of Canada rate affects variable rate mortgages and home equity lines of credit. Not a variable rate mortgages, then you need to you need to just know your mortgage rate. Your mortgage payments will be different. The fixed rate is determined by the bond market. Now, so we're expecting another Bank of Canada rate announcement, I think April 3rd. Will it go up? I predict it will. Mm-hmm. I've been in the industry for a couple of years now, and I used to place mortgages under 7%, and that was a great rate. If you got anything like 5.5 to 6.5, you were doing the dance. And my spiel used to be, this is the lowest rate since Elvis Presley. And that was the truth. It was the lowest rate since Elvis Presley. It's been years. So we haven't had our interest rates go up, the Bank of Canada rate go up since 2018. Yeah. Now there's a panic. So everyone is used to these astronomically low rates that really has been too low for too long. But our inflation is crazy, and the only way to control inflation is to increase the rates. So I do predict rates are going up. I'm getting daily emails. The fixed rates are slowly going up, and I do predict the next rate announcement is going to go up. So right now, the Bank of Canada rate is 2.7%. I think that's going to go up in a couple of days.
Okay, not what we wanted to hear, but what we predicted would happen, because they can't stay at a flat rate forever. I mean, they have to make money, and they have to increase the rates. They can't freeze them since 2018. I remember reading when during the pandemic with it, the Bank of Canada was freezing rates, and I thought, and how long are they going to keep freezing them? But I mean, they couldn't freeze them during the pandemic. It wouldn't have worked. It would have been very cruel. You know, people don't have jobs. You can't up the rates either. So that doesn't make me feel too panicky. I actually like that explanation, because that made things a little bit clearer than panicking when you see the Bank of Canada raising their rates.
Yeah, I mean, don't panic. Just expect it. It is going to be the new norm. So we now have to qualify clients with what's called the benchmark rate or the stress test rate, which is right now 5.25%. So there's a reason why they put that. They want to make sure that you can afford a mortgage rate at 5.25% if it ever went that high.
Okay.
So regardless of what the rates are, I need to qualify you at 5.25%.
Okay.
So it does protect you. So if you have a variable rate mortgage and it goes up, or if you have a fixed rate mortgage and you're up for renewal, and you're kind of shocked that your rates are going to be higher than what you had before, get used to it. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Still low.
Just have to go with the time. It is low. I remember my dad telling me a few years ago. He said when he first came to Canada and he got his first house, the bank rates were at a very low rate. They were at 2% or 2.5%, and then he never saw them that low again until recently.
Yeah. And again, from 2000, again, when I got in 2004, the rates were just under 7%. And then, and that was a great rate. So it's,
It's expected. Okay. Good to know.
So,
What do you consider a good real estate investment? And I know Anthony kind of went off, he's talking about Canada, the world, Alberta, forest lawn. What makes a good real estate investment?
What do I think? I'll tell you what I think is a really good investment. I think anything.
And I need to see all your face, Anthony.
Okay, here we go.
I'm drinking my bubbly, so I had to go out. I'm like.
I tell you, in my opinion, anything. The best thing you can do is try to find a property that you can add value to. So if you're buying, for example, a half duplex, you look at it and say, okay, how can I turn the downstairs into a suite? And then look at the back and say, well, can I do anything with that garage? You've got to look at any investment and go like, how can I turn it into multiple streams of income? And in my opinion, that is the key, because that's what's going to hedge against inflation. Everybody's rent is going to go up and everybody needs somewhere to live. I mean, you can take a small little tiny suite and still pull $600, $700, $800 out of it. Yeah. So the key really, in my opinion, and I mean, we're talking, is it legal or is it illegal? Unfortunately, there's lots of illegal suites. And I mean, I shouldn't be saying it's okay to buy illegal suites, but we just got to be real about what's going on. Mm-hmm. And even if it's an illegal suite in an area where there's lots of illegal suites, you're really probably not going to get a lot of grief. So with that being said, my view is to try to be in a place that you can do a value add. Other than that, when you look at things like taking a house and renting out rooms, and I only say it because if you're going, okay, well, I want to make as much money as I can, doing a room rental thing near the university or in an area where you're going to have decent clientele is a really good strategic move. If you're just getting into it, it's a lot of work because you've got, as you know better than I do, dealing with all the different people coming in there can be very tough, but you can maximize what you can get out of it. I mean, if you've got a 6 or 7 bedroom house and you're getting $500 or $600, well, you got a pretty good return on your house.
Yeah, you do.
But if you've got a lot of people that are, not the right clientele living in your house, then it can be quite difficult because if they're fighting with each other and you're like, I remember one time as an example, Tanya and I were looking for some multifamily places and we found a place in Vernon and it was, I think it had like 20 places in it. They just stuffed all the people together. And this guy was trying to sell it and he was running it or he owned it. I don't remember what he was. But the tenants were giving him grief. I was like, my God, what a headache, because he had not good tenants and they were complaining. And once the tenants, as you know, got control over you as a landlord, you're out of it. Like you should never, in my opinion, as a landlord, you should not deal with your tenants. You need someone else to deal with them because it's very hard to have a tenant because they very easily become your friend. And when they're your friend, they can say, oh, but I can't pay the full rent right now. And as soon as you get into that position where they're, your friend, they're not really your friend, but they're in a position where they feel like they can ask you, like, I'm a short $50. Well, that's where it begins.
I should say though, and you would know, Nelda, if you do room rental, it's a completely different landlord tenancy. It does so it either falls.
It's either a roommate or it can fall under the Innkeepers Act.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, it's okay. I did it. I hear what you're saying. I actually really like what you're saying because that's how I started when I bought my house in Fort McMurray. I rented out rooms upstairs, the spare bedrooms, and then I rented out the downstairs suite, which wasn't legal. And I very quickly figured out what my niche of person was that needed to live in the house. So I needed somebody who was neat, tidy, went to bed early, because most of the trades people or the people who lived in my house were all working in the trades. They came home at 8:30, they went to bed, and they got up at 4:30 in the morning, and they needed a good night's sleep. So I had to have quiet, respectful people who were tidy, and I told them, this is how the bathroom and the kitchen look. This is how they have to stay at all times. If you're not a neat and tidy person, I'm going to drive you crazy because I'm always cleaning up and I'm going to expect you to clean up. So if you're not that person, you can't live here. We're not going to be able to live together. And then I had, of course, all kinds of other rules as well. And I have a lease, blah, blah, blah. But yes, you do have to have a niche. You have to be in control of the situation. If someone's driving you crazy, you have to kick them out because you need to be in control of your property, not somebody else. By the way, I wrote articles on my website, neldaschulte.com, on converting your home into a rental property, converting your condo into a rental property. And that'll give you all the first steps of what you need to know if you're getting started. And the emotional stuff that you go through, because when you live in a house, that's the other thing. it's your house, and I still feel this way about my first property. When I go back and I look at it, if people have mistreated something, it really bothers me because that was my house. You know, I've got a rental condo. We've got another rental property that, you know, I'm not as attached to, but the first house I'm attached to, and it kind of hurts me when people mistreat it.
So when I see like your first home, oh, sorry, there's such an echo. You hear an echo? Oh God. Okay, the first home, when I say converted to your rental, it is hard because when we did that with my first home and I converted to a rental and it was mistreated, I was devastated, and I had to put in my mind, I'm not living there anymore.
Yes, yeah, I'm not living there.
Sentimental. Another thing to your investment property, I always say, if you could, is to follow the C train, because that's a great place to buy rental properties. A lot of them need access to transportation and C train, so follow the C train.
And the amenities. Is it close to schools, shopping centers, places of work? We have you probably know him too, Bill Biko. He owned rooming houses, and they were in kind of mid-priced neighborhoods. They were very close to industry, close to all the bus routes, close to everything. And he never, ever had a problem renting them. They just rented like that, and rented for good prices, good people. And of course, he had to manage them very regularly. He eventually, over the years, made a lot of money on them, but he got burned out and he sold them.
Anthony's a realtor has seen when people do get burnt out, and they like just get rid of this property, or they're so sick of their tenants and just sell it. And at that point, you need to just really take your step back, either hire a professional. But yeah, I mean, it's work. But owning homes is like another job. So it's glorified in some ways from all these beautiful real estate shows, but it's work. And realize and make sure you have a buffer in your account for those that can't pay rent, and that you're not panicked because you can't cover the mortgage.
Or you know, worse than that, and Nelda knows this for sure, is if you're tight on money, you take a tenant that comes along instead of picking the right tenant.
You need to move up. I can't hear you again, Anthony.
I said the worst thing you can do is, if you're tight on money, is take a tenant that comes along because you need a tenant, rather than really taking the time to find the right tenant, because that's the beginning of the end. I'm dealing with a person right now, the person who's selling that place in Forest Lawn. She just wants out. You know, I sold her a few properties, and she just is liquidating because she couldn't handle dealing with her tenants. Her tenants killed her. And she's like, I don't care. I just want to get rid of it. And I'm going, you know, if you spend $5,000 on it, you can get $20,000 more. I don't care. I just want out.
Burnt out.
Just done. She's exhausted. She doesn't want anything to do with it. It just kills her to go down there and like do anything. And I'm saying a quarter payment wonders. It's like, you know, we're talking like $1,500. You'll get all the money out of it for sure. She just get rid of it. I want it. I don't want it.
But it's just like with anything else, even with your career, with life, you get burnt out, and it's no different with investments. It's fun when you first get your investment, and then it's management and maintenance.
Management and maintenance, yes. And I was going to mention tenant screening is so important. And I don't have to chase after people for rent because I run credit checks on everybody. And I make sure that my baseline criteria is they have to be adult enough to know how to pay their own bills. Their problem is not my problem. Okay, now during COVID, I actually didn't have anybody call me during COVID and ask me to change the rent. But I need to know that people can manage their own finances.
Right.
I don't want to do that for them. I'm not their mother. Yeah. So I run credit checks. I have a very rigorous screening process, which you can find out about I'm going to put the ads out tonight. It's called Find the Best Tenants. I have a webinar coming up. And so you have to do a really thorough screening process so that you're getting the kind of tenants you want, who are going to take good care of your property, take good care of your psyche. And and
then keep them well. And then when you get that beautiful tenant that is amazing, what we do is we send them Christmas gifts, and it makes such a difference. It does.
You know, like we say, here's a $50 Christmas gift, and then your rent's gonna go up $50 a month.
No, he's so awful. No. God, he's so bad. Don't listen. No. But we do, because you know, it's not just transactional. If they're living your property, it's relationship. But then if you get too close to your tenants, it's good to have a separation. Like
Yeah,
using
I see. My tenants know who I am because I'm very hands-on. But they're not my friends. Some of them have become friends after they moved out or over time. But I don't ever put tenants in a property to become my friend because, like you said, that's big trouble. You know, you need to have a professional distance. You know, so yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
But I was going to ask you for one, like just a nutshell version, because we've covered a lot of stuff and a lot of wisdom from you two here. So thanks so much for that. But okay, what are the important factors then for real estate investing? If you had to just tell somebody who's just say, okay, I'm really gung ho and I want to do this, and what are the famous 5 or the top 10? Or
what I would say the biggest factors is, first of all, they say the old silly thing. It's like location, location, location. As silly as that is, that's really true. It is. It's like, it's so true. Like Tanya said, be near a C train. That's huge. Like, or know where the C train is going to be, because that is a massive thing. You're always going to have tenants, and they're always going to have a way to get there. So that I would say that's one of the biggest things. Don't go over what you can afford. Put yourself in a position that you're not going to be stretched for money, because I think one of the biggest challenges, as we talked about, is, if you get behind the 8 ball and you're tight on money, you're going to take the wrong tenant. It'll bury you. Or you're going to charge too much for rent, and it's like you're going to be getting the wrong tenant who's going to become a problem. And you know more about tenants and stuff like that. And as far as
I think you know a fair amount. You've been doing this for a long time, and you have investment properties. You get it.
Well, exactly. And I mean, in the big picture, tenants are just one part of the equation. It's a big part of the business. Finding the right place, financing it right. My biggest thing, I talk a lot about joint venture partners, because I think that every investor that gets into this game will hit a part where they go, I can't borrow any more money. I'm having a really hard time doing it. And then the door opens up and they go into the joint venture world, and then they really start growing, because that's when you start looking at limited partnerships. You look at all the other things you can do to get to the point of buying an apartment. I mean, that's all it is a joint venture agreement, and it's just a little bit more elaborate. You're taking care of the building. Your joint venture partners are putting up the money. So I think that's a really big part that Tanya pointed out at the beginning, was the networking and getting to meet the people that you get along with, that you like to deal with. Someone's going to have money. Someone's going to have, the credit or whatever it takes to make the deals work. If you've got the guts to get up and go and make it happen, that's the biggest and most valuable part of this whole equation, is the people that are hungry. And there's nothing I like more than hungry people. When I see hungry people, I will look for ways to make things work. As a matter of fact, I'm just going to touch on one thing. I talked to a lady today, and she's going through a really hard time. Her husband left. Her times are tough. She's going through a tough time. She's got a blemish in her bureau. She goes, you know what, Anthony, I just want to own a home. I want to own a home for me and my kids. And so I said to her, I go, well, this is going to be really challenging. This isn't going to be easy. You got a blemish on your credit. You're not making that much money. Well, your kids are going to have to step up and help you. They're going to have to get a job, and they're going to have to help you. And I said, so here's the first thing you got to do. You got a $3,500, debt on your bureau that needs to be cleared off. I said, you got to clear that off. And she's like giving up. Like, if you saw her demeanor, she was like, I can't do it. I said to her, this is the first thing you want to do. If you want to own a home, I want to help you make it happen. You need to call up that credit agency, and you did make the deal. And I said, tell them you give them $1,000. I said, no. Tell them you give them $500, and you're going to borrow it from whoever, say your mom, and see what they say. I get a text back an hour later. She goes, oh my God, they agreed to $500. And then I called my I think it was her internet or something, and I dropped it from $250 to $100. So suddenly she's taking control of her life and her finances, and she's looking at it, and it's like, great first step. You're taking control of your life. Now let's see what we can do to make it happen. It's still a journey. It's going to be hard, but if you want it, I'm here to help you make it happen. And I feel bad for her because her husband walked out on her. Anyways, I'm long-winded.
I was going to say, we've met so many. When you're in real estate, you attend like investment courses. You're going to start to see the same people who went through the same course, but they've never done. They still haven't done anything. They try to educate themselves. And educate themselves. And at some point, you have to say, you know what, just jump in and do it. Because they're so afraid, but they think they need as much education. And before you know it, they haven't done it. The market changes. And I always say, once you get in, it gets so much easier, but you got to get in. It's just a lot of fear. There's so much fear. And it's Yeah, I mean, and I think by education, it become more confident, and yeah, it does. Sometimes just biting the bullet and doing it.
So educate yourself, join networking groups, find the right location, make sure it's the right price, make sure it's like near a C train or like near good transportation, amenities. Then when you want to grow,
get a great mortgage broker.
Get a great mortgage broker, yes. When you want to grow, then you can join venture, but you do that from joining networking groups, Facebook groups, doing stuff like this, having people get to know you and trust you. And buy a property that you can house hack or you can convert. And by the way, I've done that several times. So the house that we bought in Calgary, when I moved here, it was right at the end of the second recession. And I thought, I need to buy a property that if I get laid off, because I was working as an educational project manager, and I've been laid off I don't know how many times in my life. If I got laid off, I could afford it. So I got the property that we're in now and had an illegal suite. We converted it to a legal suite, and our mortgage is $1,650, and that includes taxes. And our tenant pays $1,000 a month.
Nice.
So that means my husband and I are responsible for the other $650.
Nice. Which when you own it, and it's less than rent. Like you were to rent a house.
Well,
and that's
yeah. So, we're paying down the mortgage, or our tenant's paying down the mortgage. The tenant covers the mortgage, most of the mortgage. When the economy gets better, we might raise the rent. We might not, because this guy's really good and he's been with us for 5 years. Yeah. So, and I think
I have to mention this, although you probably know it. I was talking to some professional investors, like players, and they say you need to, as a responsible owner of a home, raise the rent every year, because that is inflation, and you should raise the rent, and they should just get used to it. It's like, even if you're only raising it $20 or $40, that's inflation, man. Mm-hmm. And they need to pay for it. They need to realize it. Because, for example, we have property in BC, and we haven't raised the rent in a long time. And, and BC is a tough place to raise rent. But now they're going, okay, well, you can raise the rent, and we get to raise it $40. Well, $40, what's that? That's like nothing. But that's all you can raise it is like $40.
4%.
Yeah, $40 on one suite, which is ridiculous. But
so they limit in BC and Ontario what you can raise the rent. They don't do that in Alberta, though.
No, Alberta is very landlord friendly. And again, when you get in, if you're not just looking at Alberta, just know the Landlord Tenancy Act. BC and Ontario are very tough markets. You just gotta be well versed with it.
So you gave us about 6 or 8 really good points if you want to get in. And educate yourself, but jump in and do it. At some point, you have to jump off the diving board.
Too much analysis paralysis, and then you're analyzing forever, and then a deal will go. When they say, is this a good buy? I say, it's not really if it's a good buy. Are you ready to buy? Are you financially ready? Mm-hmm. Where are you at in your life? That's where you need to analyze your whole picture. Are you ready? If you're ready, then do it. And you're never too old, never too young. So
that's what I love about real estate. You see people getting into it at any age and stage. Like there's a young woman that I have aligned with, who's she's the ambassador for Front Lobby and for Tenant Cube, and she is also the founder of Ontario Landlords Watch. She bought her first rental property when she was the ripe old age of 18.
Wow, good for her.
Yeah, and you're kind of jealous. You're like, she's sitting pretty by the time she's 35.
Yeah.
She owns a number of rental properties right now, and she works on changing legislation for landlords. She's an amazing person. Anyway, I started much, much, much later. I bought my first property in my 40s. Mm-hmm. Because I worked as a musician. I was a musician and a music teacher, and then I switched careers. I went into a different line of work that paid a lot more, and that's when I could afford it. So that's when I started. But you could start investing at any age. I see people investing in properties after they've retired because they want some retirement income. So,
and I see time heals all wounds. So some people are burned with a bad first buy. Some people through divorces, but time does heal all wounds, and you really can't go wrong with real estate. It does go up in value. Calgary's been slow for a while, but look at it now. It always goes up in value.
I love to hear that, and I really like what Anthony said about You know, that woman called you and she was so down and out. She must have had a glimmer of hope or she wouldn't have called you. But she just could see how she could make it happen. But just talking to you, talking to somebody out, you know, got out of her head, talked to you, and you were able to say, well, here, okay, one small step, do this. When you've done that, then do this. Okay, then come back and talk to me again. So that helped her tremendously. All of a sudden, she could see the light at the end of the tunnel. You know, so that's why it's so important to have a network of people who are on your side and who know what the heck they're doing, like Tanya and Anthony, who can help you and who can connect you with people. So I think that's probably us wrapping up. It's 8:00. Tanya,
that was fun. I enjoyed it.
It really was fun. Thank you very much for being on my show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having us.
That was a good time.
Tanya gave me a long time ago, as we were going to originally do this in January, and then we had to postpone it. But she gave me a really nice worksheet that helps calculate rental expenses.
Great.
And it's available to all of you through my membership site on my website, www.neldaschulte.com. Just click the green membership button and you can access it through Excel worksheets. And you can also access all my articles. You can access worksheets. You can access a free course I have on Do You Want to Be a Landlord? It talks about different rental things you can get into and what you should think about before you buy your first rental property. And then if you like this session, like it, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Like us on Facebook, like us on YouTube, and please share it with your family and friends. Okay, and then lastly, if people want to get hold of you, Tanya, or you, Anthony, how do they get hold of you?
Really easy. You know, I was just going to give you my website because it's easiest, but it's Tanya.mortgage. That's the extension.
Mortgage.
.mortgage. And Anthony is yourchoicehomes.ca.
Your Choice Homes? Okay.
Yeah.
Yourchoicehomes.ca is Anthony, and yours is so nice and simple.
I know. It's Tanya.mortgage.
Okay. Well, thank you again for joining us.
Thank
Congratulations for doing everything in the world all the time.
Of course.
And we'll be talking to you again.
Yes.
Right.
Thanks, Nelda. Thanks, everyone.
See you later.
Okay, thanks for joining us, people, and stay in touch with us. We like to help, we like to serve, and we like real estate. Talk to you later.
We love real estate.